Picture this moment. You're scrolling through your phone at 2 a.m., heart pounding from the dopamine crash of endless notifications. Your thumb moves automatically, seeking that next hit of validation, that next like, that next comment that proves you matter. And then you stop. You realize something terrifying. You can't remember the last time you sat in silence without reaching for something to fill the void. Now imagine someone who doesn't need any of this. Someone who can sit with their thoughts for hours, who finds peace in their own company, who doesn't crave external validation like oxygen. This person terrifies you, doesn't it? And if you're honest, really honest, you know exactly why. Tonight, we're going to explore the most dangerous paradise that exists in our modern world. The inner kingdom of the person who needs no one. And I'm going to show you why society would rather burn it down than let it exist. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German theologian who died fighting the Nazi regime, once wrote something that cuts to the bone. Let him who cannot be alone beware of community. He understood that most people flee into relationships, into groups, into constant connection, not out of love, but out of terror. Terror of meeting themselves in the silence. But here's what Bonhoeffer discovered, and what society desperately wants to hide from you. The person who can be truly alone possesses something that makes them invulnerable to manipulation, immune to control, and completely unpredictable. They live in paradise, but it's a paradise that threatens the very foundations of how our world operates. Think about every advertisement you've seen today. Every single one operates on the same principle. You are incomplete. You need this product, this relationship, this lifestyle to be whole. The trillion-dollar attention economy depends entirely on your psychological neediness. But what happens when someone doesn't need anything? What happens when someone has found completeness within themselves? They become economically dangerous. They don't buy things to fill emotional voids. They don't scroll endlessly seeking validation. They don't participate in the consumption cycle that keeps our entire economic system spinning. They're like a person who doesn't gamble walking into a casino. They can see the rigged game for what it is. But the economic threat is nothing compared to the social threat they represent. Plato described this in his allegory of the cave. Remember those prisoners chained to the wall, watching shadows dance, and thinking that's reality? Now imagine one prisoner breaks free, sees the sun, understands the truth, and returns to tell the others. What happens? Do they thank him? Do they celebrate his wisdom? No, they try to kill him. The person who doesn't need others has seen the sun. They've realized that most of what we call community is just collective neediness masquerading as connection. They've discovered that most of what we call love is just emotional dependency dressed up in romantic language. They've understood that most of what we call friendship is just mutual validation societies. And when they try to share this truth, even gently, even with compassion, society's reaction is swift and brutal. They're labeled antisocial, arrogant, cold. They're pathologized, medicated, or simply excluded because their very existence asks an uncomfortable question. If someone can be happy alone, what does that say about the rest of us? Let me tell you about Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world. He could have had anything, anyone, any pleasure imaginable. Yet he wrote in his private journal, "All cruelty springs from weakness." He spent his evenings alone, not because he was antisocial, but because he had found something in solitude that crowds could never give him: himself. Marcus developed what I call the paradise paradox. The more complete he became alone, the more he had to offer others. But the more he had to offer, the less he needed in return. And that terrified people. A leader who doesn't need your approval can't be controlled by the threat of rejection. A person who doesn't need your love can't be manipulated by its withdrawal. This is why society fears the self-sufficient person. They represent everything we claim to want: independence, authenticity, inner peace, but their existence reveals how addicted we are to the opposite. They're like a mirror showing us our own neediness, and we hate what we see. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel." Society judges the solitary person by appearance. They seem lonely, isolated, and asocial. But what society can't feel is the inner fullness, the self-generated peace, the dangerous freedom that comes from needing no one. Here's what's truly frightening about this paradise. It's available to anyone. You don't need special circumstances, wealth, or talent. You just need the courage to sit with yourself long enough to realize you're enough. You just need to risk discovering that you don't need anyone else's permission to be happy. But society will fight you every step of the way. It will tell you that isolation is unhealthy, that humans are social creatures, that you need community to thrive. And there's truth in that. But there's also manipulation. Because the difference between choosing solitude from a place of fullness and being forced into loneliness from a place of emptiness is the difference between paradise and hell. The person in paradise can connect with others from choice, not need. They can love without possessing, give without expecting, engage without depending. They become dangerous precisely because they become free. Nietzsche saw this clearly. The individual has always had a struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. The tribe, whether it's family, friends, society, or culture, demands conformity. It demands that you need what everyone else needs, want what everyone else wants, fear what everyone else fears. The person who breaks free from these demands becomes a threat to the entire system. But here's the beautiful paradox that society doesn't want you to understand. The person who doesn't need anyone becomes the most attractive person in the room. Not because they're performing attractiveness, but because they're genuinely complete. They have something that everyone else is desperately seeking: inner peace, authentic confidence, genuine self-love. People are magnetically drawn to this energy while simultaneously being threatened by it. They want to be near someone who has found what they're looking for, but they also want to destroy the thing that makes them feel inadequate by comparison. This is why Jesus was crucified, Socrates was poisoned, and countless others who found inner paradise were destroyed by those still trapped in outer hell. Society would rather kill the messenger than receive the message. So what does this mean for you? If you recognize yourself in this description, if you felt the pull towards solitude, the peace of your own company, the dangerous freedom of needing no one, you're not broken. You're not antisocial. You're not missing some essential human component. You're discovering paradise. And like all paradises, it comes with a price. You'll be misunderstood. You'll be judged. You'll be pressured to conform, to need, to depend. Society will use every weapon in its arsenal to drag you back into the collective addiction to external validation. But if you can resist, if you can protect your inner kingdom, if you can learn to find completion within yourself while remaining open to genuine connection with others, you'll possess something that no one can take from you: true freedom. The person who doesn't need anyone doesn't become heartless. They become selective. They don't become antisocial. They become authentic. They don't become cold. They become choosy about where they direct their warmth. And that choice, that selectivity, that authenticity, it's the most dangerous thing in a world built on manipulation, control, and collective neediness. Tonight, as you put down your phone and face the silence, ask yourself, am I running toward connection or away from myself? Am I seeking others out of love or out of fear? Am I choosing relationships or being chosen by my own desperation? The answers might terrify you, but they might also set you free. Because the person who doesn't need anyone isn't lonely, they're liberated. And in a world of prisoners, liberation is the most dangerous paradise of all. The question isn't whether you can handle being alone. The question is whether you can handle the freedom that comes with discovering you don't need anyone else to be complete. Society is counting on you to say no. What will your answer be?